we're grateful that you took the time to join us. I am Chaz from the Spire team, and I am just really excited for this conversation that we're going to have with Marc. Marc is, this is our second webinar together, isn't
Yeah,
it, Marc?
that's due. Must
Yeah. So Marc was at Manna House in Portland, Oregon for 30 years. Most recently, he was the senior pastor there and is now the president and CEO of Visitor Reach, which is doing some amazing work in the front end for churches and helping not just on the getting the awareness of people, but having a real comprehensive complete system that you can adopt and bring in to be able to help assimilate people into your church, which is more than just getting them there, right, Marc?
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm excited for, our content today on making guests stick. You're welcome to keep your video on and unmute yourself and have a conversation. I'll have the chat running as well. So drop in key thoughts, insights, questions that you have. And I think, again, we're going to have such a timely, important topic to say, okay, like, what do we do with this? Again, it's not just getting people to come, but how do we make the most of this opportunity in the Easter season that's coming upon us, right, Marc?
Yeah, it's right around the corner, as we all know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is right around the corner, and the exciting thing is there's going to be so many people that don't have that frame of reference of come to church on a weekly basis that will give it a shot at the Creasters, right? The Christmas and Easter folks. It's just it's a cultural opportunity, and the unfortunate reality is so many of those folks who visit don't come back and don't aren't able to really connect into the life. But as we frame up our conversation and kind of talk about those seasons of before, during, and after Easter, I want to be able to just jump in and be able to ask the high level question of what has shifted in our culture over the recent years that we should be thinking about as we invite people to Good Friday or Easter services.
Yeah, great question. First and foremost, guys, thanks for your time. Thanks for letting me have the privilege just to speak into your world and life. I know that life is busy as a pastor and leader. Did it for almost 40 years. And so I deeply, deeply love, respect you. Thank you so much for just championing the cause. But as we talk about this subject, and again, Easter is the focus, but I think more importantly, it's so critical that we understand the tectonic shifts that have happened in the last 5 years. And again, obviously, we're moving at a very fast pace in our culture and all the different things that are coming our way when it comes to things like right now, tariffs and immigration and politics and all of the issues. It's having a profound impact and effect on people. Yes, people inside the church, but primarily people outside the church that don't have Jesus. And there's been a significant shift that is worthy of our attention and focus. And that is prior to the pandemic, and we just kind of use that as a kind of a benchmark. Before that, people would take an average of 3 to 5 connect points before they would walk through the door of a church. That has now moved to 12 to 15 connect points. And so that speaks of the reluctancy, the isolation, the concern, the fatigue that are in people's lives. Ironically, Barna just came out with a report yesterday just talking about people being more open than ever, right? So 74% of people are open to spiritual things, not necessarily Christianity, spiritual things. 44% are more spiritual. And it's interesting in this report, David Kinnaman makes the statement is that there's 12% increase of people giving their life to Christ, but they're not claiming to be Christian. And really his presupposition or his thought is that people are open to Jesus, but not necessarily open to religion, the institution, church. And so this has a profound impact because if we go back all the way to the Jesus People movement, we recognize the gospel of go was predominant in the life of the believer. And so people went out, as Jesus said, into the highways and byways and built relationships and connected with people, did life together, played their guitar on the beach, whatever else they did. But the significant fruit of that is because the church was mobilized in a go context, we saw a massive awakening. And when we get to the 80s, late 70s, 80s, thank God for Donald McGavern and Fuller. And, you look at some of the early adopters of the church growth movement, like Rick Warren or Bill Hybels, there's a significant shift that took place. And we begin to buy into a new philosophy or a model that was invitation in its orientation, invitational or approach oriented. And so we begin to ask the people that need Christ or that are open to spiritual things to actually come to our church, come to Easter, which we're talking about today, come to Christmas, come to our service, come on my term, my place, my watch, my culture, my language. And that worked for a while. Let's keep doing that. So I'm not just saying, hey, we should throw all that out. But what has shifted in just the last couple years is that the gospel of come is not working like it used to. And so that has a lot to do with, this conversation today. Yes, we'll see 290 million people walk through the church in some form, some fashion on Easter, but less will be coming and more will be leaving. And so we have to look at this 12 to 15 connect points and realize it's not just an invite, it's not just a social media post, it's not an email, it's not a touch card, although let's keep doing that. There has to be something where we're mobilizing our church to get back into a gospel of go mindset and building relationships with relatives, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. And so that's one of the biggest shifts, as we start this conversation today of saying, how do we take this new paradigm, like what just took place, and really, as the men of Issachar were told to do, to discern the times and seasons and then know what to do. It's really important for us to assess that is exactly where culture is at today. So that'd be kind of my opening thoughts, Chaz, in regards to where people are at, where things have shifted, and really is that kind of the foundation to this conversation about how we can maybe even look at Easter and beyond just a little bit different based on that context.
Yeah, well, I think that's such an important place to start of the gospel of go, even as we orient, what it is that we're a part of and called to, as a church, regardless of the culture, but especially in this cultural moment. So, as we dive in, obviously we're just weeks out from Easter. It's coming, whether we're ready or not. What would you say to pastors and leaders listening today that they can really practically do that would engage their congregations to do just that, to go reach their people, to go into where their people have relationship with people who really need Jesus?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. Again, my encouragement, as a pastor for over 30 years, is to not treat this year and this season like every other year. Don't pull out the old playbook and change some dates. But let's look at it a little bit different. I think the first thing that we should be doing, and again, I know many of you are probably doing this, let's start with prayer. Like, what would it look like if we begin to engage our congregation in services or pre-service meetings, your groups, your leaders, get something out to them and saying that we have the potential of reaching more people on this weekend than any other time of the year. And we know that prayer works, right? I believe anytime, anywhere, anybody ever gets saved, it's because someone prayed. And so why not lead with that? Why not look over the next, couple of weeks and say, what's our prayer strategy? What are we doing to say to our congregation to pray? Or what are we doing with our small group leaders? And what are we doing with our youth leaders or children's leaders that are working with kids to get the kids praying for their friends? And so let's lead this thing with prayer. Let's get Jesus front and center with prayer. The second thing that I think is so critical right now is not just to say, hey, this is a great opportunity to invite. This is the gospel of come focus or philosophy. But what if it looks like something a little bit different, saying, hey, congregation, Over the next couple weeks, people are going to be thinking about this idea of coming to church. What if you looked at your relatives, friends, neighbors, and coworkers? Make a list of 7 to 10 people. Like, I want you to pray about putting together a list. Forget every person around you, every neighbor, every relative, every coworker, but put the 7 to 10 people that God puts on your heart and specifically begin to pray for them, but also how do we begin to enhance or strengthen the relationship with them prior to England, to Easter? Maybe that's inviting them over for a dinner, maybe that's taking them out for coffee, maybe it's going and playing golf with them. How do we begin to engage the relationship so that when they come, there's something fresh there for them to fall back onto? And so I think this is really important to get prayer out there and to really get the congregation thinking about relationship. And by the way, not just for Easter, but ongoing. This should be a new pattern of thought for us with the gospel of go. And then obviously there's a lot of things that we can be doing. I'm sure a lot of you doing touch cards. If you're doing that, get a QR code on them so that the 10,000 cards that go out and only 300 show up, that the 9,700 people have a place to land if they have a question. So maximize all of your printing stuff. I even think it's really cool when it comes to social media. Don't just think about what you can do to post something for the sake of the church, but once again, go to your congregation, go to your leaders, and put together posts that are shareable. Get them to hit their 500 or 10,000 names and mobilize the church in that social media space, because the average person is spending 7.25 hours a day scrolling through stuff and in front of digital devices. Let's make sure that they're doing that as well. And I could keep on going with a long list, but I think the big idea is let's look at it differently. Let's get prayer going. Let's begin to activate the church in relationships and prayer and engagement, gospel of go, and also encourage them on the back end. We'll talk about that in a little while. That, when they do come, that we also continue that relationship afterwards. So those would be a couple big ideas, kind of 30,000 foot view things that maybe we could be doing and really focusing on doing those things well.
Yeah. Man, I just love that, starting with that concept of prayer, because this is something that is the whole church. It's not just the staff who's paid to to carry out the mission or what to do the work, but this is like our churches that we represent are full blown expressions of the body of Christ that we're all called to be, and so it's not an either or, it's a both and opportunity to really partner with our congregation to all do the work, because this is, each represents their everybody is all the church. So, and I love too, like all of these ideas, whether it's a QR code or what we print or like the prayer. This is something that works for a church of 500 or 5,000, and really having that intention behind it creates a great opportunity. So I'd love to hear, if as something's come up, as we've talked about, what you could do maybe before Easter in the chat. If you have something your church is doing, let's learn from each other too. Like, is it prayer that you guys have had? I know I worked at a church where we did that intentional thing, that we brought those 7 people and just had it in our chapel and brought those up. And as a staff, we just, as we were able, go over and pray over those people. Or maybe it is a Easter egg idea or something you're doing with direct mail. Would love to hear in the chat, like, what are you guys doing before, because we're still before Easter, and we have those opportunities. But if we transition to like during, Mark, you've been a senior pastor for a large multi-site, and you've attracted at that church, you guys have attracted thousands of people over Easter. If you were pastoring today, what would you be saying to your staff, your leaders, and your team?
First and foremost, so goes the leader, so goes the church, right? So this isn't something that the creative department does. It's not something that just the senior pastor preaches. This is something that we're going to model to our congregation. And, I would immediately right now be pulling my staff together. And again, that's where a staff meeting. Again, if you're smaller and it's volunteers, you can do Zooms, whatever it is to try to engage your leaders, your staff, your volunteer base. And I just share with them that, I need you to go all in with me. I need you to look at this season as a significant season. And beyond that, I try to be putting together, which I did this for years, is putting together whether it's an email or little small video clips. And I want to speak to them beyond just invite them, but speak to them about things that they can be doing. Some of the stuff we just mentioned, encouraging them. Listen, I want you to help me model to our congregation what it actually means to be a go church. What does that look like? And then when it comes to services, because we're talking about during services, I would want my team to understand this concept. And this is an Easter idea, but obviously it should be a 52 week a year idea. I want my leaders to think this mentality. Go talk to someone you don't know before you talk to someone you kind of know. Then you could go talk to someone you do know. And again, we oftentimes congregate or gravitate to those we have relationships with, people that we want to pastor, a leader we want to speak to, which is important, but they're going to stick around. That guest is going to stick around for about 2 minutes if there's not something that gets them from their pew to the parking lot in their way. And so I would really encourage my staff to be thinking that way, just saying, what am I going to do to engage with people? The other thing I'd really encourage them to do is saying, your 7 to 10 people that you've been praying for, pick up the phone and personally call them and invite them. Like I love texts. I know some people say, hey, I don't want a phone call, but a personal human invite connection will always have a better response. It's easier to say no to a text than it is a voice. 1 out of 4 people said they would come to church if they were only invited personally. So that's a statistic worth thinking about. So I'd encourage my congregation, invite some people, and then think about a way that there's a hook or something saying, hey, we're doing a brunch afterwards at our house. We'd love for you to come over and hang out with us. Maybe we can go and then we're going to go to the park together. We're going to go out to a restaurant together. But put together a plan to where the congregation is seeing their leaders modeling it so that they can talk about it as it gets closer. So again, those are some big ideas, big thoughts, but I need my leaders to be engaged, to model, to lean in, and not be too busy doing church that they forgot to be the church.
That's man, I love that. That's going to stick with me. uh, don't get too busy leading the church to be the church. That's
Yeah.
and sometimes like as pastors, maybe you do something, you look for something for the illustration of it. And we need that. We need real life examples in our preaching that are authentic. But sometimes like, what is it? Ted Lasso says doing the right thing's never the wrong thing. And sometimes just being able to do things because that is the right thing to go and to do is important. I love Stephanie. I love the things that you guys are doing. Your texting, serving team each day, a prompt for prayer. I think that, modes of communication are so important. And even to have student led hype squad for your largest services. Man, what an invigorating thing to be welcomed into a service by somebody, especially our youth, so full of energy. So, man, that's awesome to hear. Mark, is you think of maybe in the actual service to get to some of the nuts and bolts of that. What are some practical things that churches can be thinking about to really maximize their services from a guest experience standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll jump back into the before and come back quickly to the during, is because beyond just your weekend services, there's other pockets that I think people can connect to that we shouldn't minimize. Children's ministry, 49% of parents come to church because of their kids, not because of themselves. So that's a huge thing that we need to be thinking about before that we can enhance or accelerate in the weekend service. Youth, young adults, there's these different pockets or groups, small groups that we need to be able to think through how do we get them activated and how can we mobilize them in that particular week and service beforehand. So that's kind of a before thought. But I think as we go into that weekend again, probably one of the most significant things, and I've seen this work in a lot of churches, is to really put together a formal meet and greet with the pastor or with the pastors. And again, I understand that you want them out, you want them moving with people and everything else, but there's something about a VIP and treatment that's really important. You know, you kind of feel like you're recognized and that you're welcome and that you're significant. And so I think putting together some kind of meet and greet, whether that's a corner of a foyer or a special room, a full nice spread of donuts, pastries, food, whatever it might be, and just let people know that you would love to meet them as you close the service. I would love to personally meet you. Again, you can do that obviously at the front of a service, but you might have some leaders, but just to have some form of formal invite to a place with some leaders where they can connect and ask questions. Like that's a huge one. I know all of us or most of us would have, roaming greeters, but once again, roaming greeters and parking lot attendants, I would increase those teams and I would make sure that everybody that's walking in really has someone that's kind of, you know, bringing them or coming alongside of them. I don't know what you guys are doing when it comes to guests, but gift bags are always a great win. I know there's a lot of them when it comes to Easter. But again, something beyond just a personal invite is their little bag with a nice gift, a coffee mug, something from the church, a book, a flyer, something that you can put in there that would really be special to them. I think that those are some things that you can be doing kind of front end wise. I think the big conversation for me is really about how do I capture the names and contact information of the thousands that are going to walk into my service, right? And so, one of the masters out that, Chris Hodges, a friend of mine, Church of the Highlands, just transitioned his church to Marc Estes, but they do a masterful job of doing surveys where the entire church does a survey of 4 questions afterwards, not just the guests. He asks them 4 questions, they fill that out. He sees a very high participation rate because of that. Probably the thing, and again, I don't know how you guys are using tap technology today. Our company, we've just launched what's called Visitor Tap, which is a innovative way to connect live interaction with congregation, not just giving, but if you have the opportunity to customize a tap tree or even put some kind of survey in there, you're going to see higher, much higher response rate by just tapping than you do if they have to fill something out or even a QR code. We're seeing much higher results. And so we're launching a whole thing May 1st for churches, an incredible product called Visitor Tap to really help you with that. But if you have that technology, I'd be thinking about how can I engage to get people involved in that. When I think about like kids program, and again, this might sound manipulative, and maybe that it is, but you might want to consider doing a great raffle, give away a couple bikes. A winner is announced the following Sunday. I mean, those kids are going to beg their parents every day. We did that a few years, and it actually worked pretty well. And
If
so
anybody
they,
does that at your church, let me know. And my kids are needing new bikes. So
But yeah, so that'd be, think about your kids' ministry. Again, 49% of parents are coming because of their kids. So what do we need to do to make that world class? And then just lastly, think about, what's happening in the coming weeks. Right now, you could be planning your next series. I wouldn't be planning a 4-week series on circumcision. I probably, I'm not talking about baptism of the Holy Spirit. What's the greatest needs in your city? Find something that introduces a relationship series, a marriage series, promote it in Easter, put together some kind of a video promotion piece, give them a flyer, remind them as you set together your tech strategies, which we're going to talk about. Think about that next weekend. How do we get them back to something that's very appealing? Same thing with kids. Is there something that the kids can be doing that makes it very attractional? If you're in a hot spot, put out the water slides, do something that's going to get those kids to come back. And real important, think about your youth ministry. Think about young adults. Like, what are some things you could do if you run Wednesday nights or Friday nights that the family knows about that's really special and really get some kind of appeal to bring them back? And so I'd be trying to think about what to do as they're coming in. How do I communicate, get their names? How do I get a hook to get them to come back the next week? And spend a lot of time with your staff brainstorming that.
Such good advice. And even just to, you know, many of these things, maybe things y'all have thought about but before, it's just helpful for us to orient. Hey, this is the time. Like, this is the opportunity. Let's put ourselves in the seat with empathy for our guests, experiencing it fresh for new for a first time. So something I'd love to hear from everybody. Mark mentioned the giveaway. When I was the Next Step pastor up in Chicago at Parkview Christian Church, we had a tumbler that we gave away. And it's always interesting to hear what other churches are giving away. I'd love everybody to drop in the chat, what is it that your church gives away? Because I think, again, it's just so helpful for us to be able to see and learn together. What's your church doing? Drop it in the chat right now. What your church is doing when a visitor comes and you have a gift for them. Because there's some creative ways to, use that as well. And that, man, that tap opportunity is really exciting. While you're thinking about that and typing that in, Jeff gives away coffee mugs. I love that. Everybody needs more coffee mugs to be able to drink more coffee. Greg says they do a $5 off for their cafe. Love that, because that lets you tell when they come back, if they come back. Right. Creative ways, gift bags, tumblers. Keep letting us know what you guys do. And while you're thinking of it, as you just process all the different things that we've been talking about, if you've got a question for Mark or for the group to be able to discuss, please drop that in the chat as well. Again, we want this to be interactive, so we will be getting to those questions next as you think about them and process them. So, Mark, as we've kind of gone through the before, the during, now let's transition a little to the after Easter. Everybody's in some place on this call, but we all are going to have that same time after Easter. What are some new thoughts that you might share to help us maybe think a little differently about connecting afterwards post-service?
Yeah, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is a bandwagon that I've been on and a drum that I've been beating for quite some time, is that we have to deconstruct the idea in our mind that follow-up is a series of short emails and texts to get them to come back. Let's do that. But if we are not relational driven, if this doesn't become a relationship where that person feels like you're actually wanting them to come because of a relationship, not to be a butt in a seat, you have a much better chance. Again, not many people are coming back to a church simply because they don't feel like there was any kind of relational connection. And again, the number one, when the survey was done about the 290 million that don't come back, the number one reason is because they didn't feel a relational connection with someone in the church while they were there. That is monster. And so again, where this becomes a challenge is because we built systems and processes and traditions that think that it's the text, it's the email that is the connect point for the person. It's supplemental. Let's do that. Don't get me wrong. But people want relationship. They just don't want an invitation. And so we need to just think about this. Okay, what's our relational approach to this? Second of all, is what does it look like if this isn't a 1 to 3 week strategy and then we start getting ready for Mother's Day? Like, what are we doing to say, okay, God put these people in our path. How do we connect these people with leaders or small group leaders or congregants and ask them to just establish a relationship with them once a month, even if worst case scenario, hey, thinking about you again today. How can I pray for you? Like, how do we engage relationally? That's the biggest shift that we need to have. Working with churches, you have about 1,000 churches a month, that inquire of our business, our organization. And the number one reason why people stop using us is this: we didn't know that we had to pray for them and relate to them so much. What a statement. I mean, if we can really think about what that's being said, like we thought that this was just a tool that would bring people to church. Yes, it is that. But all of a sudden, when those people actually have needs and someone's saying, hey, I'm struggling right now with depression, and you've got a pastor going, well, I already got enough problems inside the church in my own life. Like, I don't have time to pray for this stranger. That is the significant new Roman road. Like, this is where we have to be. And so, as you think philosophically about building an after strategy, what are we going to do to engage to put relationship and longevity as the two primary philosophical drivers in our follow-up strategy? And then, oh, by the way, let's text and let's email and let's do all that stuff. But can we get relationship in there? That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, so important. And, it's again, nothing new. Yes, the technology may be new, mediums and forms of communication may be different with social media or texting or, voice communicating with Alexa or what have you, that you can help us facilitate those relationships on in a digital world through visitor reach. But at the end of the day, connections are connections and relationships are relationships. And, sometimes there's that sentiment of, man, ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people, right? and it's like, what a backward way. I mean, I get people are challenging. They do really stupid things and frustrating and break us and hurt us relationally. But at the end of the day, that's what Jesus was about, and that's what we're invited to be a part
And
as
it's
well.
it's 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 just really about our philosophical approach, right? Like, even in sending a text that says, hey, thanks that you came. Are you coming next Sunday? Has a gospel of come invite orientation to it versus saying, hey, thanks for coming. I was thinking about you. Hey, if you could ask God for one miracle, what would you be asking for? I'd love to pray for you. All of a sudden, you have a different approach that person actually thinks, well, this church or this leader actually cares for me as a person. And it's in that engagement that now connection takes place, trust is built. They're now, because you've asked an open-ended, genuine question, they'll respond. We found that if you text someone within 10 minutes, 92% will respond if it is a need-based question in regards to what's going on in their world. That's why we're always leading with, how can I pray for you? And they come back, pray for this. We don't just give them a thumbs up, hey, praying. We go, hey, I'll be praying for you. Can I text you back later on this week and see how you're doing? Always finish the text with a question, because people always want to be courteous to respond to the question, but always make it about them. And as you build that, it's okay to supplement saying, hey, instead of just saying, hey, I'd love to see you at church, say, hey, I can't wait to meet you. I'll be at the info booth. I'd really love to see you face to face. That sounds a lot different than just, hey, I'd love for you to come. So put the relationship and the personalization in the communication to where that person sees the one, right? Isn't that what Jesus did? Every time there was masses, he found the one. He always found the one. The blind guy, the guy in the tree, Zacchaeus, the woman with the issue of blood, the thief on the cross. There was always masses, and he showed us whenever there's a bunch of people, you'll be ineffective if you just don't find the one and personalize. Compassion is passion personalized. And that's what we need to really be doing with these follow-up strategies.
Yeah. Well, I think that is so true. So if I put my assimilation pastor hat on a little bit here and I'm thinking through, okay, yeah, at a large church, there's thousands more visitors that come at a time and they're engaging. Realistically, each human household, we have our limits of how much personal communication we're able to have with a single individual. What does that look like is that teams of people? I mean, I know that was what I did at our church. We built a whole team of guides who were Sherpa style leaders that helped people get to great heights because they were guides in the process, not the heroes themselves, but a guide. Is that a team that's doing that personal relationship? Is that the pastoral staff? What are you seeing in best practices for who's having those personal conversations?
Yeah, I always start with relationship, use relationship, not organizational structure to drive that. Yeah, first and foremost, the relationship with the person in the church is the one that's going to be best. And again, I understand that people in our congregation go from everywhere from 30-fold to 60-fold to 100-fold. I mean, to ask anybody to do something is a challenge in church today. But again, if 86% of people, and this is a profound statistic, 86% of people that came into church, gave their life to Christ, and stayed in the church had a relationship outside the church prior to their conversion. And so, first thing is from an organic standpoint, again, as you talk to your congregation in coming weeks, if you bring someone, you know, take care of them, build a relationship. So that's the best approach. Supplemental to that, I have found the churches that have great group structure, small groups, connect groups, life groups, whatever you call them, that they become great little community centers. And again, whether that's geographical, topical, homogeneous, demographic, however you want to do that. But again, getting a group to think outwardly, just not inwardly. And one of the challenges, maybe a whole conversation, again, just on group philosophy. Book of Acts tells us that groups are to be caring, reaching, building, right, and relating. And oftentimes we're in the relating category, but we're not doing the reaching component. And so what's that look like to get groups to engage, right? Can you take this list and ask small groups to be able to help with that? The other big one too that often we overlook is give everyone with families that checked into children's ministry, get the children's leaders, staff, volunteers engaged to take a family approach. I mean, that we did that quite a few times, and let them send out a letter and text from them. Hey, it was so wonderful having your beautiful kid Tommy in the service, man. We would love to personally get to know you. And all of a sudden, you recognize the kid, the name, the parent, and it doesn't just seem like a bigger corporate, approach to it. So groups are a great way, departments are a great way, but let's just find a way, right? And let me just say this when it comes to the thousands. Texting is the new universal follow-up strategy. Our whole ministry, we sent millions of texts last year through various churches. America today will send 5.5 billion texts today alone, 2 trillion this year. And here's an interesting statistic that just came out. 93% of people that receive a text asking them about what's going on in their world will share their deepest concerns, hurts, and pains with a stranger in a text, and only 13% to their face. And it's amazing. You watch it on social media. People are posting about everything all day long. So what's going on in my life and taking pictures. And it's just crazy the way that people are just opening up their world to the multitudes, right? Let's maximize that, right? And so texting is a great way to do that. Our platform allows that whole idea where you're building automated, customized AI conversational assistant oriented ways to take the masses and make sure that not one of them fall through the cracks, right?
That's so helpful.
What's some other thoughts?
Stephanie asked a question on the stat. The statistic again about the 290 million people not coming back Could you give that again?
Yeah, so 200 million or 290 million people will attend. And what they're saying is that not many will come back. And the ones, 290 million includes Christians and unchurched people. And what we're seeing is that there might be only somewhere between a 2 to 3% lift on regular attendance after the dust settles until Christmas. The CEO Christian, right? Christmas, Easter only. Yes.
Yeah. Creasters or CEO. Yeah, that which is a reality. So before we get to more questions, I encourage you to enter them in the chat, or we can use this time as well to workshop even some ideas that maybe you have about your church, and would love a group session to be able to think through this. Marc, you have been such a valuable, you and the whole Visitor Reach team have been such a valuable partner to Spire. And what I know you've helped Spire churches with is this very thing that we've talked about. And I'd love for you maybe just to give us a little bit of a rundown on Visitor Reach if somebody hasn't heard of you. And you mentioned like the Visitor Tap and some of those other to be released products. I'd love to be able to have everybody get a full understanding of what it is that all that Visitor Reach does.
Yeah. Thanks for that opportunity. Appreciate that, Chaz. We didn't start out with some idea to put together, the next cool, innovative technology tool for churches. That wasn't our goal. Us as co-founders, we have, over 150 years of combined experience of running networks and global movements and local churches. I mean, we love the local church. We're part of the local church. We serve the local church. We'll die for the local church. And so it was through the pandemic and everything that happened after that where we begin to recognize that we were on the crest of perhaps one of the greatest awakenings in history. But culture had shifted so much and the church wasn't prepared necessarily for the tectonic shifts. And it was out of that conversation as pastors where we started, first of all, just thinking about what are we going to do not only to change the playbook, if you will, for our local churches, but maybe for our movement at that time. And it was out of that that we began to stumble onto some things that we felt that were much broader in order to really help the church. And so I'll just real quickly, I'll just share a slide again. This isn't a sales pitch, just so you understand what we do. My heart is to come here to serve you, to love you guys, to help in any way that I can. If we can serve in any way, we'd love to be a part of that. We do believe that there's something that we're doing can really help. Just in the 1 year's time since we've gone hard launch, we're already in 35 states. And so we're seeing some great fruit. But basically, as I share my screen, let me just real quickly, there's just basically these four things that we do for a church. We're trying to put together a reach strategy, helping them with all of their digital health, looking at their voice recognition technology, looking at maps, looking at their website, looking at their social media scores. And really what we're trying to do is to make you findable, discoverable, and desirable, trying to leverage the 40 plus platforms, local listing managements. We offer a thing called a digital health assessment. It's normally $99. It's free for Spire churches. You can get that on our website, or Chaz wants to send that out to you. It's just a 9-page report you fill out in 60 seconds, and we scrub millions of bits of information. But that's kind of our leverage point because we realize that's the new Roman road. 7.25 hours a day, people are in that space. So let's get them and talk to them when they want to talk in their space on their device, not just wait till 75 minutes on Sunday morning. The another thing that we do is just personalize ads. We use AI to help us build personas of your church. We then look at those to figure out reaching three kinds of people: people that are new to the area, people that are looking for a church, or people that are on a spiritual journey. And so it's not just a blanket social media spend. We're really trying to just help churches target those that are in that top echelon to be able to get those connected to the church. The cool thing about that is they give us their name, their phone number, their email. So this isn't just like a like. We've shifted the metrics or the scoreboard. We want engagement. So people that come to you, they're saying, I want you to pastor me. They drop into our app. We've spent a couple $1 million putting together, I think, a very significant enterprise tech stack. It's proprietary. We own it. And it's really custom tailored for the church, as well as the ability for every church to personalize and customize it based on where they're at. It starts conversations with people, everything that we've been talking about. We want connect points. We had one guy, 56 texts over 10 months before he walked through the church, gave his life to Christ. Now he leads First Impressions. And so we realize that there's some people that are on a journey. So we want to be able to build the automation and technology to build those relationships. And then ultimately we get them into there and we walk them not just through the front door, but all the way through the back door. So we're working to put together all of your mid-funnel stuff, your texting, all of your customized journeys. Ultimately, back end, we want them to get them into church, interface with all of your CRMs, and then we have live coaching. So that's kind of in a very small nutshell what we do. With that in mind, let me just real quickly show you this. If you're interested in just a conversation, this is no obligation. There's a QR code on there. You click that, there's some discounts that are available. You're treated a little bit differently than just a normal person because of Spire. But if you click on that QR code, you'll talk to someone. It's a 10, 15-minute call. You can ask some questions and see if it's something we can do to serve you. If not, we'll continue to pray for you. But ultimately, we just want to be there to serve you in any way that we can. One last thing too, Chaz, if you don't mind, is that on our website, visitorreach.com, you'll see all the stuff that we do, but there is a whole blog section, and we put together a pretty significant blog post and video about this Easter conversation on there. So that might be an added value. Just go download that. It's an ebook that you can take a peek at, hand out to your team as well. So just some things for you to think about.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I would encourage you, any questions that you have, drop those in the chat or raise your hand and come on video. Greg asks, does any of this integrate with Rock?
So yeah, so we have, let me stop sharing my screen real quickly. So yeah, we have taken the top 5 and we've developed API technology that interfaces with the big ones, PCO and CCB, which is now CHMS, Rock, Church Management, those kinds of things. And so currently right now, there's a way for us to export. It's not live back and forth currently, but will be in a matter of weeks. But the reality is that when it comes to fields, because we're a texting platform and have conversations, there's a lot of fields that we have that a CRM doesn't have. So when it comes to hard data like name or email or those kinds of things, those are easy to migrate over. The challenge is that we don't with relationships or text, just simply because they don't have the ability to take that. It's not that we don't have the ability to do that. So, and it's just set up where you can use this as your primary. You can get rid of a thing like Text in Church or Clearstream or those kinds of things. It's a full mass texting platform as well as AI and marketing. It's a all-inclusive plan, but it does work with those CRMs.
Good. Good. Greg, did I answer your question? Any follow-up? All good. All right. Thanks for joining us, Greg. And thanks everyone for the time today. I want to close our time. I want to pray for us before we do. And if nobody has any questions, Mark, I guess I just want to ask you, as you think about the opportunity in front, all of the different things that we've talked about. Okay, Josh has a question first here. We're having our Easter service at the local high school, so we can do one service. Is it a big deal if we don't have kids ministry? This is a good question. So it sounds like, Josh, you guys you want to all be under one service, bring everybody together, which is a cool opportunity, but you're processing how big it is to have kids ministry. Mark, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I've always been a strong proponent of trying to put something together on Easter that best represents who you are 52 weeks out of the year, because you want them to be attracted to that experience. I would, I don't know the building. I don't know, your culture, anything else of your church and stuff. So I would lean into trying to put together something that does represent kids ministry. What you don't want them is to try to have to find a babysitter or bring them into the service and have to leave because the kid's cranky or whatever it might be. And so I'd try to present something to people that are coming that represents some form of a quality kids ministry. Can keep in mind 49% are coming because they want their kids to experience something significant when it comes to spiritual things. And it might be could be a turnoff for some, I'm not sure, but I'd be thinking, strongly about a strategy for that. And if not, I'd be thinking about things that you could do and say in the service or ways to include kids that show that there's a high value for children. And maybe there's some things that you're doing with a kids choir or something that shows kids engagement. So if that's your plan, think of a way not just to do something for adults, but maybe to include kids in some way.
Yeah. And also if you're going to one service, you're going to have volunteers that won't be able to attend that service. So,
Yeah.
you've created that problem, but it's also an opportunity. Maybe there's some special way that those people can feel just as a part of Easter, in their sacrifice to do that. So
And maybe when they come in, they get a little, they get an Easter, color book and crayons and a little thing that's real cool that the kid gets excited about. And I mean, there's some other ways to look at that differently, but I try to find a way to have a kid strategy to let the parents know that they really value you really value the kids too.
yeah, thanks for that question, Josh. Stephanie asks, what do you recommend to try to get more volunteers in difficult areas? Example, parking team in Las Vegas when they will need to be outside at 120 degrees in summer. Yeah, that's a good question.
Again, so goes the leader, so goes the church. Anything that you can do to engage your leaders in doing stuff like that and being passionate about it, getting them rotating. If I pull into a parking lot and I see a leader that's out there versus just, some volunteers, that says a lot too, that you value that ministry. So that'd be one way. Second of all, what you preach, you get. And so those parking lot people, how do you honor them? How do you get them on the stage, celebrate them, pray over them, talk to them like you, instead of just every Sunday, hey, we love our worship team. Let's get them ahead again. Like, why not do that with the parking lot attendants that are out there sweating and smelling pretty bad as a result too? Starbucks cards. I mean, anything that you can do to honor people in hard areas and celebrate from the pulpit that you value that ministry. Tell stories about what they're doing. Ask those parking lot attendants to share a story where they encountered a single mom and how she's coming back to the church. Like, those are the kinds of things that I wanted to get creative with to really celebrate a hard to serve area and overemphasize that the best that I can.
Yeah, man, those are some great ideas. So
Yeah.
appreciate that. Okay, Angela here. Oh, suggest Josh, we're going to do a pre-service party 15 minutes before each of our Easter services with baked goods, coffee, a photo booth setup, and games. Angela, can I come to your church? That sounds fun. I'm always
Yeah.
down for a party. So very good. Well, I just want to say thank you once again for everyone taking the time to come today, for Marc, for your insights and perspective, and just helping us round out what it looks like before, during, and after Easter, which is such an important opportunity. And hopefully we all took something away that we can get better at. So to close our time, I just want to pray for all of you and your representative churches and the important work that you're doing. So let me pray real quick for our churches this Easter season. God, we love you. And I thank you for each of the churches represented in this call and the work that you've invited them into, for their willingness to be intentional about the people who are not yet a part of their church. Father, I pray for blessing in their preparation as they take some of these things that we've talked about, that we've kicked around, that maybe are new and fresh ideas, or maybe they're just old reminders of the things that they know are really important. May you bless that work of preparation. And in the moment of our church is celebrating the resurrection collectively, I pray that you bring tremendous blessing on those opportunities that we have to engage with people that can be cared for, that can be loved, that can be invited into the community of the kingdom that we get to be a part of. Father, I pray that you make us unreasonably hospitable in those moments. That is a clear connection to your spirit at work in us. Father, I pray for our follow up as well as we go through and build those relationships with the people that we meet maybe for the first time at Easter. May you bring blessing on the churches in their efforts to connect them, to bring them to a place of where they can serve others and be fully integrated into the church. May you bless that follow up, and may it be a reflection of the love that you have for your people that come for the first time in these churches. Thank you again for your many blessings and how you've loved and cared for us in the many ways that you do. And I ask that we just may be fully blessed in how we live out what it means to be in the kingdom. We love you and thank you. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Hey, sure love you guys. Sure appreciate you. Thanks again for the wonderful time, Chad. And thank you, Chaz, and thank you for letting me be a part.
Oh, our privilege. So thanks again for joining. Have a happy Easter, guys.